McLaren CEO Zak Brown has offered a notably cautious assessment of his team's competitive position as Formula One edges closer to the 2026 season, suggesting that while McLaren will remain among the sports elite, they may no longer be setting the pace at the very front. Speaking during the final phase of preseason testing in Bahrain, Brown acknowledged that McLaren have produced what he considers a solid car, but stopped short of placing the Papaya team as the benchmark among the top contenders. Instead, his comments painted a picture of a tightly packed leading group, one in which McLaren may be chasing rather than leading. "I think we've produced a good car," Brown explained. "I think we'll be in the Big Four. I don't think we're in the front of the Big Four, but it's going to be a long season with a lot of development. We're still learning, but I think we're in a good starting position." Those words are striking, particularly given McLaren's status entering the season. The team arrive as reigning champions in both championships, having secured their second consecutive team's title in 2025 and witnessing Lando Norris claim his first Drivers' Championship. Historically, such dominance would place a team firmly in the role of favorite, yet Brown appears reluctant to embrace that label. Instead, his comments suggest an underlying concern that rivals may already hold an advantage, or at least have greater potential waiting to be unleashed once the season begins in Melbourne. As speculation continues over the true competitive order following testing in Bahrain, Brown openly admitted that appearances can be deceptive at this stage of the year. Testing data is famously unreliable, and teams are known to conceal their true performance until it matters. Looking across the press conference table at Fred Vasseur and Toto Wolff, Brown did little to hide his respect and perhaps concern for McLaren's closest rivals. "I think the red guys and the silver guys are looking very strong, and I don't think we've seen everything yet out of Red Bull, but I think we're definitely in the top four." The implication is clear. While McLaren believe themselves to be securely inside the sport's leading quartet, Brown is not convinced that they currently possess the outright performance edge. Ferrari and Mercedes appear, in his view, to have made significant steps, while Red Bull Racing remain an unknown quantity. A dangerous prospect given their recent history of dominance. This cautious stance raises an important question: why would the reigning champions downplay their chances so openly? One explanation lies in the shifting landscape of Formula One as it approaches the major regulation overhaul of 2026. With teams balancing current performance against long-term development, even the strongest outfits face difficult strategic decisions. Brown's words may reflect an understanding that McLaren's rivals, armed with vast resources and technical depth, could be better positioned to exploit loopholes or breakthroughs within the evolving regulations. When asked why a noticeable gap still seems to exist between the so-called Big Four and the rest of the grid, Brown pointed not to facilities or technology, which are now largely standardized, but to human factors. "It's people, we've all got great technology, wind tunnels, etc., the McLaren CEO said. "I think in our case we've got a fantastic culture with all the men and women at McLaren, we have a lot of stability, we haven't had much change in the team, so I just think we've got great ways of working. Also we have a great driver lineup, as do many other teams, and I think when you put that all together, even though the margins are very thin, that ultimately makes a difference. But it's early days and things will consolidate here pretty quickly." Here, Brown highlights what he believes remains McLaren's core strength: organizational stability and culture. While other teams have undergone leadership changes, internal restructures, or philosophical shifts, McLaren have enjoyed continuity, a factor often underestimated in modern Formula One. Yet even this confidence is tempered. Brown repeatedly emphasizes how early the situation remains and how quickly the competitive order could shift. That language suggests an awareness that stability alone may not be enough if rivals unlock superior performance through aggressive development or regulatory interpretation. There is also an intriguing subtext in Brown's remarks about Red Bull. By stating that we haven't seen everything yet, he acknowledges a familiar pattern in Formula One. Red Bull often reveal their true pace only when it matters most. For McLaren, the prospect of Red Bull re-emerging at the front would complicate an already crowded battle among the leading teams. Crucially, Brown's assessment reframes expectations around McLaren's 2026 campaign. Rather than positioning the team as dominant champions defending their throne, he presents them as contenders preparing for a long and potentially volatile season. One where development rate, strategic calls, and execution may matter more than outright starting performance. That framing may be deliberate. Lowering expectations can reduce pressure, allowing the team to operate with focus rather than scrutiny. It also acknowledges the reality of Formula One's current competitive balance, where small margins and rapid development cycles can reshape the order within weeks. As the Australian Grand Prix approaches, McLaren's true form remains difficult to gauge. What is clear, however, is that Zak Brown does not believe the fight will be straightforward, nor does he expect McLaren to be comfortably ahead. Instead, his message is one of guarded optimism, confidence in McLaren's foundation, respect for their rival's strength, and an acceptance that the battle for supremacy in 2026 may be closer and harsher than ever. Whether this cautious outlook proves to be realism or strategic understatement will only become clear once the lights go out and the season truly begins. Continuing from that picture, the cautious tone struck by Zak Brown also opens a wider discussion about how McLaren see themselves heading into the new Formula One era. A team coming off the peak of success is instead choosing a defensive public narrative, reinforcing the idea that being reigning champions does not automatically translate into sustained dominance. Behind the confidence in team culture and internal stability lies an acknowledgement that McLaren's current advantage may be fragile. With the 2026 regulations looming, every development decision carries long-term consequences. Teams that focus too heavily on the present risk falling behind in preparation for the next era, while those willing to shift resources early could unlock decisive performance gains. In that context, Brown's reference to a long season with a lot of development feels both like an internal warning and an external message. McLaren may not start the year as the outright benchmark, but their objective is to remain within striking distance, waiting for the moment when their development direction pays off. This approach places consistency and execution, race by race, ahead of pure headline-grabbing pace. There is also a psychological layer to Brown's remarks. By pointing out that Ferrari and Mercedes look very strong and hinting that Red Bull may still be hiding their true potential, he subtly shifts the spotlight onto McLaren's rivals. In this narrative, McLaren are no longer the hunted champions, but one of several teams forced to fight relentlessly to defend their place at the top. For their competitors, the message is clear: McLaren do not view themselves as untouchable. For McLaren themselves, it is a reminder that success in 2025 cannot breed complacency. With margins thinner than ever and competition intensifying, the 2026 season could become the ultimate test of the team's philosophy, adaptability, and mental resilience.